धर्मक्षेत्रे कुरुक्षेत्रे समवेता युयुत्सवः।
ओम सहनं भवतु सहनं भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनाधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ओम शांति ओम शांति ओम शांति। Let us sit down and study together. Through discussion, we sharpen each other's intellect. May we not bear any ill will towards each other. Peace, peace, peace. Let peace prevail.
Amitabh, this 17, on the surface, it looks like it's more about 3 gunas. But my feeling is it's all about me and you. I mean, many of us, it represents a kind of vast majority of us, this chapter 17. And Krishna doesn't say do this or do that. He just says that things depend on what you are built inside, what your inner nature is, and how does it then show up. So the inner built-in kind of things that you have is what is expressed outside. And that's what he's, I think, trying to get to. I mean, before we delve into verses, what do you think?
Yeah, I think that's basically it. Remember, in chapter 3, 4, he mentioned that people will worship me according to their intelligence level,
Right.
or they are also being guided by the traits that they have. Traits, by traits, I mean gunas.
Yeah.
Okay. And then their actions reflect those expression of their traits. Okay. Not knowing that they are ultimately all worshipping that one omnipotent, omnipresent Brahman,
Yeah.
which Krishna is the metaphor. But the point is, not all people have the same preponderance of the trait. So the manifestation of their respect or the worshipping is guided by their trait. And that's why in chapter 15th and 16th, he puts so much emphasis on the traits or the gunas. Okay. He describes those 3 gunas, what is the attributes or the features of them, how they guide us, which one is destructive, what he called Ashuri Prakriti,
Yeah.
and the other one which guides us to the right path. And now he tells that, look, the people with the 3 types of traits, how they act and express this respect or the pujas towards me. And then in the last part is the most important part, that when we get enlightened, what does Om Tat Sat means?
Yeah. Right.
Okay.
So the 15th chapter, the last verse is talking about Shastra, like you do things as mentioned in Shastras or the scriptures. But nowadays we talked about that it could be constitution, or it could be, a rule book of your town, or the hospital you work in may have certain kind of norms that you practice. I mean, so you follow that. And Arjun asks the rebel question. He says, what happens to those people who don't want to follow?
The word Shastra is very much misconstrued, because in Bhagavad Gita, again and again, Krishna says there are different modes of worship, and the one he says is one should not do the worship made out of your wants or your ego.
Right.
Okay. So I want to make that very clear. When he talks about Shastra, Vedas, he's talking about that transcendental knowledge which is imparted into that worship.
Yeah, but it's also basic day-to-day practice, right? Day-to-day routine. You follow the rule of the land.
It is routine, but it has got a much broader perspective than the selfish perspective.
Arjun's question is not about selfish. He just says those who do not follow that,
I'm not talking about,
they are the kind of rebels. What happens to them? I mean, that is his question. His question is
yeah,
simple,
yes,
right?
yes. He asked them, people who don't follow this kind of worshipping,
Yeah.
how they worship them. And then Krishna goes into the different traits and how they function and
Right.
how they worship.
Right. So the
Okay,
first verse that Arjun asks the question, which is a very natural question, and I think many of us probably fall into that because we don't know the Shastra. Many of us, many people don't. So they
that's
fall in this category, the 17th chapter category.
exactly.
If you are not following, say, different faiths, like in some faith, there is 10 commandments. If you're not following that, if you're only following your heart, and you are a good person, kind of, you think you are a good person. And
That's the key. You think you are a good person.
right, that's exactly what Arjun is saying. I mean, he's not saying about bad person. He's saying a good person who doesn't know Shastras, doesn't want to follow Shastras. How does he, how does he interact with this world?
That's right.
So this, I think, is a very practical. I mean, that's is, I was thinking, this is the focus is mostly on the gunas. Here, the focus shifts to you and me. How do you, I and B, you,
That's right.
me, and others behave? I think
Yes.
that's what I was thinking.
Um, I would not say behave. How would we express our offering? Or how do we
Well, he
serve?
talks about all the things. He talks about body, food.
Yes.
He goes into way more detail than just the
That's right.
Paramatma and the Brahman, right?
Yes. When I said offering, I mean it's a composite of all those things.
Yeah, yeah.
The whole life
Offering
is
is yagya, if you mean that, yes.
the
That
whole life
also,
is life and its actions are offering.
yeah, yeah. So I love this, and the whole thing is centers around shraddha, and shraddha has no English counter word. Some people use faith, but that is shraddha and faith are different, right?
Yes. Faith is a kind of a idea that you have in your mind.
Yeah,
It is kind of a belief system. Okay.
yeah,
Shraddha is expressing your respect with humility.
yeah. So it's kind of a good-hearted rebel. It's like, how does he interact in this world? And then Krishna jumps on that and he says shraddha. That's why I said Trivata bhavati shraddha dehinam sa swabhavaja. And this is probably one of the first times Krishna talks about swabha. That's the inner nature, right? In
Yes.
So
Yes.
he says your swabha, which depends on these three things, right?
Yes.
Three gunas, Sattviki, Rajasi, Chaiva, Tamasi, Chetli, Tam Shunu. So
Yes.
now he's going to explain to Arjun, what happens. Sattvanurupa sarvasya shraddha bhavati bharata. Now he says that everything depends on his shraddha. What kind of shraddha you have determines what kind of person you are. So what kind of this is where I have this meaning of shraddha is it is connected to swabhav and your inner nature. And whatever determines that, of course, the three gunas determine that, distinguish, what kind of shraddha you have. That is who you are. That's who you are going to be. So once you know somebody's inner kind of nature, you know what kind of behavior or how actions he will have in his life.
Earlier, we discussed about gunas and how from gunas or the traits, the inclination of pravritti starts.
Yeah,
Pravritti then manifests in action.
right.
So basically, that's what I presume you said
Yeah,
that it is from the gunas. Gunas is the origin, okay, or the mechanism of the actions and how it converts into pravritti and then how the actions are manifested. Okay, so that's a rather important point to understand.
Yeah, it's a very important point. I think this inner nature is important, the svabhavaja, he uses the word svabhavaja. And the three gunas, we want to talk again, sattva is goodness, Rājasic is passion, and Tāmasic is ignorance. And we all have different,
Inertia, s-
or inertia, yeah.
yes. Sat is calm, quiet, analytical, focused.
Yeah.
Rajas, full of action, full of desire, up and down. Okay. And they sometimes lose focus. What's the global view of this? Because they are so immersed within that.
Yeah.
Remember, the verse was kama eva krodha eva rajoguna samadbhavam.
Yeah.
So the strong desire, the anger are all products of this rajogun. And tamas is inertia, immobility, non-functioning mind, non-discriminating mind. So
Yeah.
these three aspects or the three traits is good to know. Once again, we emphasize that we all have that because we are when we are embodied, the natural element has contributed this.
Yeah.
Okay. And they are always fighting within ourselves to get the prominence during any modulation of action.
Right. And we also just want to recap
Yes.
that sattva, when we say sattvic, it's more like light, like
Yes.
the Rājasic, when we say it's more like energy, force.
Passion. Yes.
And then tamas is more like weight.
Yeah.
So
Inertia.
it's not like three different kind of energy. It's totally three different properties of each of them.
These are attributes.
Yeah. No, so sattvic is more like the light, brightness and that kind of thing. Whereas, so it's light energy versus the, force or, kinetic energy, that is the rajas. And tamas is more like a weight, so like dead weight or heavy weight. So that's a different way of understanding, I mean. So threefold, that's what it is, trividha. And born of it, one's own nature. I mean, that is what I think it's important to know what determines our nature. How do we act out, act out? And I think this ashastra vihitam ghoram tapyante ye tapojana. So, it's like he's kind of hitting Arjun by this saying that if you say you don't want to go with Shastra, and Arjun's intention is more like good-hearted people, but some other people may do intense tap, intense practice with dambha, ahankar, sangyukta, kam, rag, balanvita. I mean, I love this one because, they are so kind of arrogant, right? You have the dam, ahankar, that we have talked about, this ego combination, and kam is desire. So you don't want to follow Shastra. And you say that you will do on your own, but you are full of ego and desire and all this. That's not, appropriate.
That's right. What it basically means, and we talked about it many a times, anytime we do the procedures or anything, rituals, that if it is driven by our ego and desire complex, it is not the same quality as when we worship with humility and surrender.
Right.
Okay. So that's why it says that all austere measures,
Yeah.
people who do that, okay, and do tapasya with that kind of thing,
Yeah.
they are torturing their body in which the Lord resides, okay, but their whole ritual is pervaded with ego desire complex.
Right, exactly.
Okay.
And that one, he says, that's not the
That is
um,
not the way to do it. And that's
yeah,
why I remember one time we talked about,
yeah,
you said you went to Kumbh Mela. There are a lot of people who wears mm, the orange robe and put ashes on the body and all those things. They stand on one leg or anything like that.
yeah.
What I'm trying to say that, look, austerity, which crowds the mind because of the ego, the intense desire, is not the right way to do the worshipping.
Yeah.
Okay.
So ego-driven ascetic is not someone Krishna will appreciate.
That's right. And it is not appreciated in any part of the Hindu religion either.
So
Okay.
Amitabh, when we talk high language, sometimes we forget that there is practical things in life as well. Uh, so let me give you, and this is my practical thinking on 17, which I didn't think. I thought it was just three gunas, but the more I delved into it, more it dawned and grew on me. So chapter 15, Krishna talks about cutting attachment.
Yes.
And chapter 16, he talks about the three um,
Great.
traits for the hell, that ego, desire, and delusion, and that those things that he's describing again here. And he says, cut the attachment and then move on. And then he says, so what we do, normally many of us, we don't want to cut anything. We say, I will have all of them. I'll have a little bit of attachment, a good attachment. We will kind of be nice, right? I'll have good attachment. I'll have good ego. I'll have anger when needed. And I will have lobe, greed. It's not greed, but I need my car. It's like we want to be little attached. We want to be little ego. We want to have little desire. We want to have some greed, not excessive, just within normal. And we want the spiritualism. And it's so funny. I mean, it's just, I'm reflecting who I used to be. I mean, I wanted all of this, a little bit of all. And then I read 15, 16, and 17. I see, goodness, I mean, Krishna is saying, it's like, it's kind of all or none, it's like, and then I realized when I could see that if I could get attachment cut, and that means really cut, that's a totally different land, freedom.
Yes. The question is the important point what you hit, that we try to justify our attachment with good attachment, bad attachment, these, that, okay, just it's like tiptoeing around it, okay. No, here it is very clear cut that maybe we had been driven by ego desire, but
Yeah,
it is time to cut it, okay. It cut that upside down tree of material
yeah,
world and then follow up with the worship or the functions without ego desire complex. This is the most important part. Without ego desire complex. Now, we might see, which we see many a times in the temple, people go there, oh, get my son's job, or a good companion, or various kind of wants. Okay, so much so that sometimes people go to the temple to get an American visa.
yeah,
I have heard about that. Now, the problem of these are not, although apparently they look like worship, in truth, they are not worshiping.
yeah. No, I think that's a beautiful thing here, right? In this chapter, I love that, because he's calling Arjun out here. Arjun is trying to say, oh, what happens to those people who are goody people, but and he's saying, I mean, this 5 and 6 is very strong statement by Krishna. 5 we just talked, it's like ghoram tapyante ye tapojana. And he also is against those people who torture their body. And he says, you know, your body is important. I am residing in that. And
That's
you
right.
are giving it, torturing it. That's not going to be good anyway, right?
That's right.
And he calls them asur. It's like God.
The important, he brings out this example because which apparently looks something very out of ordinary. We kind of get all kind of awed by this. Okay,
Yeah,
we
I know.
but here he takes this extreme example and tells Arjun, Arjun, this is also wrong because torturing the body within which I reside, they are
Yeah.
satisfying only their ego desire complex.
So
That's
Krishna is setting boundary that intensity is not spirituality.
austerity with ego desire is not the final thing.
Yeah, that is the intensity. Because you are intense and you are
I just
standing on,
wanted to define that intensity.
yeah, austerity is very, many times, is intense. You're right. And here, top word is used, and top we translate into austerity. It's not always intense. So that's why I said the
Yes,
intensity that you are, it's like doing things that are harmful to the body.
exactly.
You should do things that are good to the body.
Yes.
And that's why he talks about ahar.
Yeah.
Ahar means food. I mean, he just talks about, starts with, what kind of food you should eat. So how should you treat your body? And then he goes on to what kind of food you should eat. And again, this food, he talks about 3 types of food, right? Sattvic food and,
Yes.
Rājasic food and Tāmasic food. I must say, sometimes I do like that Rājasic food, achar or. So that's what I was saying. We all want a little bit of, a little bit of, this is not going to hurt me, right? Uh, but he is very clear about the 3 types of food. It's like, and I think in general, I think the taking care of body and taking care of your food are very related. And
Yeah. He talks about the choice of food according to the traits,
yeah,
according to the gunas.
yeah,
However, the whole emphasis is how to have a healthy body.
yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So
That,
yeah,
that
I mean, so he's very, that's the first
very
thing he
clear,
talks about.
very
Because
clear.
if you don't have a healthy body, you can't do tap, you can't do, many of the things that follow, right?
That's right. Many times there is a saying that you treat your body as a temple.
Yeah. Well, but even, I mean, you go to gym, I try to go to gym regularly. And why do we do that? It's for the body. I mean, it's like, and
Many,
yeah,
many a times, a healthy body is a good receptacle for a healthy mind.
yeah,
If the body is suffering through pain and all kind of negative feeling, uh, this kind of analytical thinking will be the last thing to be bothered about.
yeah. And then comes he next talks about yagyas, the offering that you were talking about, 3 kinds of offering.
That's right.
Yeah. And, if you are doing a yagya just for your ego desire, I mean, we talked about last time as well. I mean, so there are 3 types of yagyas. Do you want to take this up or?
No, you go ahead and enumerate that, and because I have basically I mentioned that the traits actually decide which way
Yeah.
we are going to do this offering or the puja or the worshipping.
Yeah.
And bottom line is it should be without ego desire complex.
Yeah,
So
so Sāttvic is, if you do the yagya for yagya's sake, you're not doing it uh, to impress others. If you're doing it to impress others, then
right.
it becomes Rājasic. And then, if you're doing it for some selfish reason
Yes,
or satisfy personal ambition, then
yes.
it's um, a little different.
Good example, which I
Yeah,
saw during my childhood,
yeah,
that there is a worshiping committee, there is a chairman, there's a vice chairman, and all those things, and the important persons became took those positions. Then people who collected the
fundraising kind of,
donations, or the big person who donated very big, he was given a position or something like that. These are Everything is happening around the puja
yeah.
or the worship, but actual worship is not there.
Yeah, I think what you're saying is important for people to understand that are you doing puja for your sake or are you doing puja for puja's
Exactly.
sake and the betterment of everybody.
That's right.
So you can still have the organization part that you mentioned. But the intention behind is more important, right?
Exactly.
Yeah,
Uh, exactly. You
yeah,
can have all the organization, but remember
yeah,
what you are doing. I must say one thing.
yeah,
Uh, and I often talk about Ramakrishna Mission. There was one Ramakrishna Mission was established, and one sannyasi was put there, Swami, and he was very meticulous about maintaining and building the temple and keeping all the ledger,
yeah.
finances, everything. He was so engrossed, he didn't, when the president of the Ramakrishna Mission came and he took him away, he said, you have forgotten what the temple is for. You are so much engrossed in this and the importance that you have
No, I
forgotten that.
think you mentioned a very important point because if you take your job so seriously that you forget what it is for,
That's right.
then that can stray you. I love this chapter. I mean, this 17th chapter is kind of growing on me because it is, uh, he's addressing little, body, how what you
What is
eat, what you do, yagya. And then I think this is probably one of the striking verse for me, here is so he's talking about tap, so the body type tap is is one thing, and for body, say he says Devata, Brahman, Guru, or Jnani Jano ka pujan, it's like your humility basically, he says, and purity, brahmacharya brahmacharya ahimsa cha shariram tapa uchyate. So he's talking about those as a tap for body. Then he talks about how you should speak.
one thing about chapter 15, verse 15,
Yeah,
that previously he described what are damaging to the body, those kind of austerities which are driven by ego desire complex.
yeah,
Here he talks about what is true austerity. And austerity is that do not let the mind delve into that ego desire. And these are the ways that you practice austerity of the mind.
yeah. That's what I like about, he says tap. He's not talking about the tap that many munis and people do, stand on one leg
That's
uh,
right.
and do your meditation or whatever. He's not talking about tap. He's talking more like your day to day discipline.
Yes.
Yeah,
That's that's a very important point.
yeah,
Day Day to day discipline in this world, practical world,
yeah,
with that idea
yeah.
that and the function that he has enumerated here in this.
Anudvegakaram vakyam. You know, it's like you speak something that doesn't create vibrations in the other person. So I'm not hitting you with my words, It's like, and there are many people who intentionally do that.
He talks about not using the inflammatory words.
Yeah, don't use, yeah, satyam priyahitam chayat,
Yes,
something that is pleasant to the person.
yes.
Swadhyaya bhyasanam chaiva. So there is some knowledge and a study and that also, inside that. So you don't just blabber. What you say should have some sort of gahrai or depth in it, right? So he's I don't think he's against casual talk. I mean, yes, you can have casual talk or gossip, but
But
don't,
this
yeah,
casual talk should not be hurting.
yeah, it should not be hurting someone.
It is not inflammatory. It should not look down on anybody else. It should not make satire of other people, which
Yeah.
can get hurt. So this type of talks are important. Okay.
No, that is how I think he says that these are the Sāttvic kind of way of talking. But it's a great thing to learn for us.
Yeah, sometimes we think that with sharp words we try to make the point.
Yeah,
The idea is that you can be soft spoken and you can still make the point.
yeah, and that's what he calls of speech or austerity of
That's
speech, which
mental
is
psychological austerity.
it's kind of golden rule for communication, right?
Yes,
You know, it should not cause agitation or distress to others.
yes.
Satyam, it should be truthful. He's not saying don't speak the truth. Like if you have to say somebody has cancer, you and me as doctors, that's one of the news that we break. You don't have to kind of not say that you have cancer just because the patient will feel bad, but you can communicate in a way that it doesn't disturb the person.
Yeah, in that expression, they are already having hard time. Why use a hard word, harsh word to
Yeah.
double it? Instead, say the fact with compassion. That's all.
Yeah, that's all, but it's not easy. Many people use those words just to hit somebody. Many people use words as a weapon.
Well, then they are not saying only word, they are saying words with ego. Remember what one time we always talked about a discussion becomes an argument when ego is added to it.
Yeah, I know. I mean, but it's still, it's like we were talking, and we have come out of India, you and I, and sometimes we don't get into the gossip of the extended family. And today we had that conversation where, it's like someone is trying to show me down and someone is trying to show me up, and I'm not going to budge. And that conversation, it sounds like, oh, yes, I mean, it's so, you know, passionate. Um, and maybe the person can prove that they are right, but the effects are not right, you know. Uh, and that's an interesting situation that
You
we
might
we
have,
have come across. I mean,
you might have come across a sentence here
yeah,
people often use that he's so direct. Okay. And it has got a bad connotation. Not that the person is not telling the truth, but he's
yeah,
telling the truth. It's such a harsh word which hurts that. Uh,
right. Yeah, I mean, yeah, but Krishna doesn't say don't say satyam. I mean, he wants to be truthful,
yes.
but he wants to be, uh, yeah, nice about it. Manah prasada, then he talks about your man. So, mana prasada saumyatyam. Man is more like sthita pragya
Mhm.
bhasha he is using here. Monatma vinigraha. So he's not only talking about your speech, but he's also talking the instrument behind your speech, the man, So your man should be shant as well.
And that's what we were talking about. If your mind is so much passionate,
Yeah,
uh, so much passion there, okay, one should be able to recognize that this passion is coming from the Rajoguna within
yeah,
us. Okay. So once we recognize that, we immediately we can control that. Okay. But if we are not aware
yeah.
or not controlling it, then what comes out of our mouth, maybe we did not mean it.
So it gives two characteristics. One is saumyatam, gentle.
Yes.
But he also says maunam. Ma- Maunam, not only of the maun, like not speaking, but maunam of the mind. The mind can be quiet too.
Yes. So that awareness keeps the mind still.
Yeah.
That
It's amazing that, he's talking about tap. Tap he's relating to speech, and tap he's relating to śraddhaya paraya taptam. It talks about shraddha again. Tapastanni vidhim narai. Not desiring the fruits of action. That's what he's saying. That or fal karm fal tyag, uh, afalakankshi, and it's like somebody who is not desiring doing it for personal gain, basically, or results.
one has to make sure it is not out of selfish desire.
Yeah. Shraddhaya para ya taptam tapas trividham narai. The one he talked about, the body, the speech, and the man. And afalakankshi, that I love this word afalakankshi, which is talked about karmfal tyag before. And then he talks about what is the tap, that is Rājasic. Uh, and basically it is done, the discipline done to sake of reputation, status, and show off. That's a Satkar man pujartham. Satkar man, if you do a puja for, your status, or satkar means somebody respect you, tapodambhena chaiva yat kriyate tadiham proktam rajasam chalamadhruvam. So he's not saying this is bad or good. He's just saying that this is Rajasic. And
Yeah, but one thing,
yeah,
in 17, he talks about all those three things that you talked about,
yeah.
okay? Body, mind, and other one that you talked about.
Speech, communication. Yeah,
And when they are tempered by transcendental faith, this
yeah,
knowledge, okay, then they already become something of a Sāttvic type of manifestation.
right.
Okay. Rajasic manifestation is a little bit different because it is driven by passion, anger, ego,
Yeah,
increased desire, and all those things.
yeah.
This also exists, but it has its limitation. That's all.
Yeah, it has its own, causality, as we talked before. Yeah. I think you mentioned an important thing that, and I used to believe that, once you do that transcendental part in spiritual, you become a seeker, suddenly all these things change. No, your somehow doesn't just change in a flash. You are on your way to change, but you still have to use your control, or cut the attachment and control your desires. You still have to do that at your level. It's
Yeah.
not like, as I said in the beginning, a little bit of this, a little bit of that. The good desire I will have, the good, uh, and many times it is like that. When you're seeking for God, that's the good desire. Let's say, if we call that good desire. But if you start using that seeking God as a thing for you to be, people to worship you, then the boundaries kind of become blurry.
Yeah, that's when the ego desires slithers in. So
Yeah,
the important point here is this self-discipline does not appear as a mutation suddenly. It is
yeah,
sanachanaya abhyasa yogana. Slowly we become aware and we practice. And that's how it happens.
yeah. And then, of course, he talks about Tāmasic, which is mood. It's like somebody who is ignorant. He doesn't know what he's doing, but he's doing it, for his own ahankar and lobe and that kind of. So tough can be basically all these things that he's talking about. You feel like tap is always good. No, tap is not always good. Yag is always good. Krishna
No,
is breaking that barrier. Puja is always good. It's the intention behind that he is putting the focus on.
exactly. Exactly. So when it becomes without proper intention,
Yeah.
actions loses its importance.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, this is, uh, you remember, I mean, I'm not against Satnarayan Puja, but many times it is becomes a ritual, and it's like the bigger person you are, the more people come, or more show off there is. And if there is that, if that's the intention, then yeah, sometimes it is still worth doing it just to keep the tradition, maybe. And one day, maybe the sattvic properties will come. But I think it's better to have the intentions right from the beginning. When,
You see, you mentioned of Satyanarayana Puja, but the point there in that whole katha is
yeah,
that if you do this, you'll get that. Okay.
yeah.
And
Yeah,
here
so that's Sakam Puja, which is okay. It's done all over the world.
it is done, but question is Krishna says here is not okay.
Well, I don't know if he says it's not okay. He just says that it's Rājasic or it's Tāmasic.
Yeah,
He doesn't really say any place. In some places he says mood and
he uses the word.
asur, but he doesn't have a recommendation. It says if you do this, this happens. What do you want to get ultimately?
Yes, I think you have said that right.
Yeah,
That the way you approach it, that causality
yeah,
gives the result. Okay. And what is the mechanism behind it? But he does use the word ignorant do this
yeah,
kind of Rājasic puja, this kind of Tāmasic puja, but worship. But the whole thing, ultimately, he talks about non-fruitive action, desireless action, okay, egoless action. Okay, so and it also percolates into our worshipping or shraddha or yagga and whatever you
yeah,
offer. The bottom line is ego desireless offering.
yeah, yeah. Bottom line is you're right, but he implies what you're saying is that he doesn't, say do only sattvic thing or do only rajasic thing, but he implies that these are superior.
Yes, he does mention in third and fourth chapter that the people will worship me in different ways according to
Yeah,
their tastes.
yeah,
Okay, so he is saying that these are the existence of desire, different kinds of offering or the worshipping, but this one is the best way.
yeah. And this also breaks that barrier that I even have, and many people still have, that doing puja is good, always good. But Krishna says doing puja is good, but the intention behind
Exactly.
is important.
You hit it just right. The
Yeah.
intention behind it.
Then he talks about dan, and dan is like,
Really.
we, and this is quite common in the Western world anyway. There is always this different charities who come and knock on your door or my door, and we all kind of do, but it's like intention behind giving the dollars, It's like, what is the intention you have? Are you giving it to bring your name up, or uh, and and have a big foundation in your name? And so it's not, it's a good thing. Dhan is a good thing. You're helping others, but the intention behind is so important.
I I have to tell you a story. This
Go
is
ahead.
really fun. One of my colleague donated handsome sum to our public library, to the children's section,
Yeah,
in the name of his father. Okay, which is a very good thing to offer the children's library and all that.
yeah.
There was a marble plaque. Now, as it happened, one time a bookcase was put against the wall, which covered the
A
uh,
marble.
marble. And this gentleman in our lounge was ranting over it. How come they had this money and this is all covered? And he made it sure that the bookcase is removed from that. Now, to me, the gift was great.
Yeah,
Intention might have been the action must have been great, but not the intention.
yeah. Well, that's important. I mean, it's good that he got a plaque, a marble plaque, but
And
um,
he gave them the very handsome amount of
yeah,
charity, which
yeah.
is very nice. No question about that. But the purpose for it was little different than what appeared to be.
So, it's like a data vyamiti yadyanam. If you think it is your duty to give, it's like this is your give back to the community that brought you up.
Please do.
Those are the Sattvic giving. And as you said, giving because you get the name. I mean, you can get a plaque, but if plaque is the only motive you have, then there is a problem there. And then this you give money, but you are insulting the person cause. That's not
Or
so.
you
That's
see,
Tāmasic, let's not say that that's not good, but that's Tāmasic. So it's interesting that he took all these important things that we put a lot of weight on. We put a lot of weight on yagya, we put a lot of weight on dhan, put a lot of weight on puja and tap. And he's saying that just because you are doing that is not enough, or it can be three categories. Implies that the better is the sattvic one.
yes, yes,
Yeah,
that's the very important. But the concept behind that charity, the concept behind that worshiping, the concept behind that offering, it, it is your mental state.
yeah.
Okay, that defines.
Swabhava, yeah, inner nature.
That's right, and that defines where you exist in that action of puja, charity, or anything like that.
Yeah,
It is it is extremely important for us to there is a nice saying in Christianity that when you give with your right hand, your left hand should not know it.
yeah,
Okay, you have heard that before.
yeah,
And that's how it is. Because what it says that you are giving, it's a egoless, desireless giving. When we give something with the expectation of giving it back, it's a business, it is not charity.
yeah. No, I get it. I mean, that's in our terms, in Krishna's terms, that's a Rājasic.
Yeah,
One is Sattvic, uh,
yes.
and if it is Sattvic, you get this. So it's all. He's not trying to say one is bad, one is good. I mean, of course, we try to make that distinction, but he definitely says that if you do this kind of, mostly Sattvic, uh, the
I,
end, you will be on a different path than the Rajasic.
I,
This, yeah,
I will use one thing, but remember, when he talks about any offering, any action, any charities with ego desire and something getting out of it, he used the word muda. Okay.
Mood.
Muda, which is
Yeah.
which is
Ignorant or,
yes.
yeah,
So ignorant does that because they cannot recognize what kind of trait is prevailing with their action.
yeah. When to do and when not to do is one of the definition he has said,
So,
that they don't know that, you know. And this brings us to the kind of finale. And I think this is, I thought it may be, I mean, you will know it better, Om Tat Sat. This is a Gita phrase, right?
no, that's it. I think it is one of the Mahavakam.
It
One
is
of
a Mahavakya, but I think it is from Gita. You know, like there
I'm
are
not
other,
very sure.
Aham Brahmasmi is, another one. And Om Tat Sat is as far as I know, it's very much Gita. And Krishna, Om. Um, and he says these three words. I mean, these are the, three diamonds or gems or whatever you say of chapter 17. You want to talk about Om? I mean, Om is also Mandukya Upanishad, right? Uma.
Yes. Let me talk about a little about Om.
Yeah,
Most of the Hindu chantings start with the word Om.
yeah,
Om is, first of all, let's go over how it is, uh, what the connotation of it.
yeah,
In Mandukya Upanishad, there are three states that we exist.
yeah,
One is awakened state,
yeah.
okay, when you have got
So
mind,
awakened is awe, right?
awake state.
Yeah, or conscious.
Yeah, just a
Yeah,
minute. So the first stage, which is called Jagrita state, okay,
that is
conscious.
the awe part.
Yes. It
Okay.
is also suggested by the word awe. Okay.
Yeah,
What does it say? There is body, mind, and the soul or the Atman. Okay.
yeah,
Next one is dreamlike state. People might say it's a REM sleep stage.
yeah. What is the Sanskrit for that?
That one, Sapnamaya state.
Swapnamaya. Okay. So Swapnamaya is the dream state, which is the O.
There, we are not aware about the body. Our mind is there, our soul is there. Okay.
Yeah,
Everything appears real, although we do not exist there physically.
yeah,
The third one is Shushupti.
yeah. That's the
Shushupti,
deep sleep, or
deep sleep state. So at that point, the mind is not there, the body is not there, only our soul just flickers like is a flame that unflickered. So
yeah,
that is Sushupti state. So these are assigned A, U, Ma sequentially.
yeah,
And then at that state, which is also called Pragya state, that one can ultimate talking about blending with that transcendental energy, and that's the Turiya state.
that's the fourth.
That's the
Simply, that's what he said. Yeah,
so the so this is one of the way to whom is
yeah,
interpreted. Second one is that which is called Nad Brahma.
yeah,
Mm. So it is also called Anahatanad. That is, it's a spontaneous sound of this universe. Okay. Or the spontaneous
yeah,
life sound of the universe. Okay. It is it is spontaneous because it is not generated by striking one object to another. So that was it, anahatanad.
yeah,
So it is a humming sound, which is also called Om, like that.
yeah,
Okay. In Gita here, Om is the significance of that Brahman.
Yeah, and he says that, it is used in kind
All
of
the chanting, all the mantras, all the chanting.
yeah, Om is this beginning of all of those things. And so Om, he put the emphasis on Om and Tat, that.
Yes.
So I'm working for that. I'm doing everything for that, not for me. That's one way to think about it. I think Tasmad, yeah. And then Sat, Sat means,
That is the real,
yeah,
ultimate
Sat means
thing.
truth and goodness. It
Yeah.
is used to describe actions that is beneficial, auspicious, and real.
Yes. Remember, we went to the chapter real and unreal.
Yeah,
Okay? From there, you get the concept of Sat.
yeah.
Okay. What is Sat, then what is real?
Yeah.
In truth, it is that universal life energy, Brahman is the truth.
In Gita, it's related to the action, to the work.
Yes.
Om is, used before all of those. Tat means, I'm working for that, which you always say, agent of the deed, so Tat and Sat also, I work for virtue or work for goodness, that kind of
That's the reality.
meaning is also given here. And then he finishes with, yagye tapasidhane cha sthite sadichi chochate karma chaiva tadirthiyam. So, Sat kind of pervades all these things as well. Basically, that's what he's saying. It's a master class in living, you know. How do we mindfully live? Mindful living in a way. Or, how you don't have to stick to scriptures or books, but if you can get the qualities of Sat, it's preferable. Sometimes Rajas, at least you should know what those intentions and qualities are. He ends with ashraddha. You can do tap, you can do dan, you can do kritam, tapas, taptam. But if you are doing it with ashraddha, then it has no place, no meaning.
So this,
And that's a good ending, I think. It's like he's repeating that, if you're doing all these, good looking things that have got good kind of, kind of a badge by the society, and if you're doing it without shraddha, then it has no meaning.
exactly, exactly. The if our action or the expression of this respect to that Lord of the universe
Yeah,
or the transcendental energy, if we are doing with ego, desire, self-importance of our for our only benefit, then charity, worship, offering, everything becomes meaningless. However, that becomes asaddha.
yeah,
Even austerities in the name of that, where you torture the body, that also is not right. So nurture your body where the Lord also resides. Do the function or do the offering or the worshiping without ego, desire, okay, any self-importance, benefits, and then do this action where you really get enlightened. And then one can say, Om Tat Sat.
yeah. That's it. It's beautiful. I just have one final thought, which I've been thinking as well, related to this chapter, is that, it's like we said, we want a little bit of everything, but, as we grow, as we start our high school and medical school and all that, knowingly or unknowingly, we are building something about us. You can say trust and distrust. And trust not only, in the society, which is also important, what people think of you. And that trust builds very slowly, very invisibly, and depends on what kind of shraddha you have, what kind of actions you are doing, can people trust you? And you have said something, not done. Slowly and slowly, the trust develops and you build yourself. As I said, it's for you as well, in your eyes as well. And you build a kind of a personality. It's like reputation network you build, in which what you think of yourself, what other thinks of you, and distrust is also building at the same time. It both are kind of invisible, but it is something that you build up to the end of your life. And of course, once you go, you go. But this is, I think this chapter has been very helpful in understanding how easy it is. I mean, you have been through rough roads, and some actions may not have been good, some actions have been good. You have matured from that and built up to a point where Arjun is now ready or not ready. It's like, he's learning, he's absorbing, he's asking questions that we would have asked at the same time. And I think chapter 17 again, it's like once I started getting deep into it, I saw, my goodness, it's such a practical chapter for us who don't necessarily follow any rule book.
Yes. The thing about it, it is a slow life's experience teaches us. And Arjun is lucky that he has got a teacher at this point. What is happening with Arjun? That yes, ultimately he has got to get to the fight, the
Yeah,
war. However, the thought process behind it, through this learning process,
yeah,
he becomes a better warrior. His emotions are very much under control. Okay, his function, what he does, he is going to go against adharma. Okay, the the people who are not righteous. Okay,
yeah,
it is his duty. He is not doing it because of his revenge.
yeah.
He is
Not
not
anymore. Yeah,
not anymore. He is not Bhim at this point. Okay, Arjun is an enlightened warrior.
yeah,
Okay, so that's why his functioning will be totally different at the end of Bhagavad Gita.
yeah. He will never be the same, as you said. We will never be the same, at the end of it. Uh, One thing, of course, chapter 17 is a mirror. It shows you who you are. Yes, Arjun, it's great for Arjun and great lesson for Arjun. For me, it shows me a mirror, what kind of speech I do. And sometimes I may have hurt somebody, it's like we all have gone through that. What kind of, it's like actions I do, what are the intentions behind. And some of these things, only the person who is acting out knows.
Yes, actually, what you said is very important. In this chapter, we learn that when the gunas predominant, uh, we can recognize them, we can modify our action. Okay,
Yeah.
which one will be the righteous way to do it, and which one will be non-righteous to do it at that point.
Yeah.
Okay, so in that way, this chapter is very enlightening.
Yeah.
Question
It
mark.
is. It is very enlightening. I mean, yeah, well, it's like, but each chapter that we have talked about, we probably got, more out of it because we were now going deeper into it. It's like, as we've said from the outset, it's concept learning. So we are not dissecting the verses in kind of spiritual format. It's a very practical format that we have taken, and it's like it's benefiting us. So hopefully it will benefit people who listen to it.
This pravritti or the inclination, how our mind is affected
Yeah,
by our perception,
yeah,
by our traits, and our inclination. This makes us recognize them and therefore modify our action,
yeah,
okay, and our intent. And this is a very important part of learning.
युयुत्सवः मामकः